Hey, this is Kit Cabela of hardlensmedia. We're covering the Veterans for Peace rally here in the city of Chicago. I'm joined here with Natasha Erskine. Thank you so much for joining hardlensmedia.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So, essentially, your time in the service, you were speaking on a Facebook live stream about how your identity was being chipped away. What was that feeling like in regards to that, and what did you do to really maintain who you are as an individual?
It was absolutely smothering, to be quite honest. Like I said, when you're on active duty, it seems like your boundaries are small. Your unit is your family, supposed to be your family. So when I didn't have um, that love in return, if you will, it was very hard for me um, to focus, right? Like the things that were microaggressions, right? The things that were very subtle were things that actually chipped away at me, and I didn't even know it at the time. What I thought was I was just working harder. I was just proving myself harder. I was making myself, as conformed to the unit and the situation or the environment that I was actually in. But actually, it wasn't until certain social movements started, like down in Florida and in Sanford, Florida. I went down to a Trayvon Martin rally, and I mentioned that, and then Michael Brown was killed, and so I was stationed in an environment where Fox News was playing constantly in our office. I lived with some of, or I should say, lived. I worked with some of the most bigoted persons that I had ever experienced in my service. So the narratives of being out in the social movement and being woke, if you will, to some of the issues that people that look like me were experiencing, but then to come on duty and to hear the Breitbart, Drudge Report, and the InfoWars narratives, it was very hard for me to sit in that. And so it wasn't until I just started really unpacking a lot of the movement, and I'll go back and I'll just say the activism actually started helping me deal with uh, the on duty turbulences a little bit better, because it was through there that I started feeling confident in saying, even just normal dialogues like, well, 17-year-old children who are coming from a store don't deserve to be shot and killed, right? Like, but having folks in our office that were congratulating and thought that that was something that was good, and then I resonate with the pain of his mother, and it was just really hard for me to kind of to unpack some of that, like where the feelings were coming from with people who I deploy with, people that I would call comrades. It was really hard to see. But I think a lot of those social justice, or excuse me, I should say a lot of the social issues were starting to just divide America. And to be in an office where I literally saw that was just so hard. And I didn't start unpacking all of this as a woman, as a black woman, until I retired. And I say that because a lot of things that I thought were, this is how you work harder, you grind harder, you want that great report on your enlisted performance report. But it wasn't until I retired that I started realizing, like, I had a totally different military experience than some of my friends. That I started realizing, like, a lot of those things that made me uncomfortable, a lot of people didn't have to go through that. And so just a lot of really going through getting back with my support network is actually what started to bring back my own identity that I feel like truly was just lost in my Air Force career.
And in regards to education, currently we're dealing with a system where public schools are being cut, most notably here in the city of Chicago. Funding for the schools here are being cut drastically. Teachers are basically forcing their students to be into larger classrooms, and in fact, CPS is now cutting more teachers off as well as their assistants. What are your concerns in regards to at least ROTC and perhaps military recruiters coming into these low income working class neighborhoods to where there's really no outlet for work or to get a education past high school? I mean, what are your concerns in regards to that?
My bottom line up front is I am fearful that a lot of the social movement, civil rights era in the 60s that kind of quelled some of the segregation in Chicago schools is actually some of those decisions or some of the movement of funding, right, is it's actually happening again. So my concern is really for some of the schools. Like for instance, I'm a CPS parent. My daughter goes to gifted schools. Um, so for her, it's a little bit different. But when I go to another neighborhood and I'm actually organizing families in a neighborhood, like say in Woodlawn or Inglewood, where they don't have the same experiences that my kid has, right? So here's a situation where we're on the south side, but our schools are different just because she's in a selective enrollment school. Seeing some of the decisionings that are, or I should say, the decisions that are happening around what schools, how their divestment is actually working. For my daughter, that meant her Spanish was actually cut. They couldn't afford the Spanish teacher for her 8th grade year. Whereas other schools are actually learning 7 different languages, in the middle school ages. So when I sit back and I look at opportunity, it's really being choked off. And when we look at ROTC, it's not the answer. It's something that I feel like is a possible remedy to problems, but we really haven't dug at the root causes. It's not about militarizing or making these scared kids in a, scared straight situation. It really is about mentoring these kids the same way we do across town. It really is about giving these kids opportunity. I see kids that you would think, you could probably, put a bias on, but those are some of the brightest children that I have actually worked with. I'm actually just starting out with After School Matters, and the kids that, they're brilliant, right? But you don't see a lot of the opportunity in their schools, again, like you do at other schools. And I think that that's where we really have to focus some of our attention, is that the city is making hardline rules, right? Like some of those buildings that Mary Emanuel closed, charter schools are opening in those schools, right? And so the funding for that real estate, where does it go? Right? Those were our schools. Like these are the types of things that we're talking about, those types of opportunities. And there were discussions and decisions that were supposed to bring the community in, and those things haven't been done. So there's a complete divestment around educating brown and black kids. And yeah, that's definitely a concern for me.
And in regards to the organization that you're helping out, After School Matters, where can our viewers and subscribers learn more about it and find it on social media?
Actually, yes. So my real work is actually with DuSable Museum of African American History, and so they're having a summertime After School Matters where they're actually giving kids examples of leadership, mentorship, going around the city doing things that they might not have done. So it's After School Matters, I believe it's .org, and actually we need folks that are willing to, adults that are willing to volunteer with the children. We need folks that are actually willing to just come and be a mentor, right? The time commitment is not, an hour a day, actually, or a week would actually be great, and that's really what we're striving for.
All right, well, thank you. That's a great note to end it on, and thank you so much for joining Hardlens Media. And to our viewers, peace, everyone.